Rikers Island escape attempts. Why no one gets out. The Rock of the East River. Rikers Island, New York City's most notorious jail. For nearly a century, men and women locked here have tried the impossible, to break free. Some swam through freezing waters, others tunneled, disguised themselves, or fought their way past guards. Yet one truth remains. Almost nobody gets out alive. Tonight, we dive into the real-life escape attempts from Rikers, and why this island fortress swallows every dream of freedom. Rikers isn't just a jail. It's a city within a city. Built on a 413-acre island in the East River, between Queens and the Bronx, it houses over 10,000 inmates on a normal day. Surrounded by icy currents, guarded by armed officers, and connected to the mainland by a single bridge, Rikers has been called the Alcatraz of the East. And like Alcatraz, it has inspired desperate escape attempts. The first whispers of escape came in the 1930s, not long after Rikers opened. Inmates, mostly men locked up for violent crimes, realized the island's geography could be both a cage and an opportunity. A few bold prisoners tied sheets together, climbed fences, and tried to swim across the East River. But the currents were unforgiving. Bodies washed up downstream. Stark reminders that Rikers was built not just with bars and guards, but with nature itself as a weapon. To understand why no one escapes Rikers, you need to see its design. Every facility on the island is wrapped in double or triple fences, topped with razor wire. Spotlights sweep the grounds all night. Inside, the jail is a maze. Long corridors, locked gates, and endless checkpoints. And beyond those fences? The East River, freezing, polluted, and full of dangerous currents. By the 1970s, Rikers was overcrowded and violent. Guards were underpaid and poorly trained. Escape attempts spiked. Some prisoners saw guards as corruptible. Others looked for weaknesses in construction. One man, in 1975, famously hid inside a delivery truck. Another disguised himself as a civilian worker. But almost every plan ended the same: capture, often within hours. One of the boldest attempts came in 1981. Two men scaled fences, dodged spotlights, and dove straight into the East River. Against all odds, they actually made it across. But the river had one more trick: hypothermia. Shaking, exhausted, they collapsed near LaGuardia Airport and were quickly recaptured. Their bid for freedom lasted only minutes. The river is merciless. Even strong swimmers face swirling tides, hidden debris, and freezing temperatures. Coast Guard boats and NYPD harbor patrols circle the area. At Rikers, the guards don't always need guns. They have the East River, a natural wall of death. But water wasn't the only enemy. In 1985, inmates tried something bolder: a tunnel. Using smuggled tools, they chipped away at floors beneath the cells. Their plan was to dig out, hide in the sewer system, and vanish into the Bronx. It almost worked. But guards discovered the hole before the final night. The prisoners were thrown into solitary, their dream buried with them. By the late 80s, Rikers was infamous. For many inmates, trying to escape was less about freedom and more about madness. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into years. The desperation was unbearable. And in that desperation, escape attempts became both legendary and tragic. But the most shocking escapes, the ones that rattled New York City to its core, were yet to come. Attempts so daring, they seemed ripped from a Hollywood script. And yet, every one of them faced the same brutal truth. Rikers Island does not forgive. The 1990s breakouts. By the 1990s, Rikers Island was at a breaking point. Overcrowding had reached record highs, with more than 20,000 inmates packed into facilities built for far fewer. Violence was daily. Guards were outnumbered and exhausted. For some prisoners, escape wasn't just a fantasy anymore. It became an obsession. In 1991, one inmate tried the oldest trick in the book, hiding in a garbage truck leaving the island. He slipped into the vehicle, buried himself in trash, and waited. But at the bridge checkpoint, guards grew suspicious. They jabbed the piles with metal rods and found him. Instead of freedom, he was dragged back into custody, covered in filth. Another desperate bid came in 1994, when two inmates scaled a gym wall during recreation. They climbed to the roof, sprinted across it, and tried to leap toward the outer fence. But corrections officers were waiting. The men were tackled mid-jump. Both were badly injured. The rooftop stunt was over in less than 5 minutes. The most creative escape plot unfolded in 1998. A group of inmates working near the island's boathouse had access to tools and materials. They secretly built a crude raft, planning to sail across the East River at night. But just before they launched, a guard discovered their stash hidden beneath the dock. The raft was destroyed. Their dreams sank with it. For officers at Rikers, each escape attempt is a test of vigilance. Guards from the 90s still recall the tension, the constant fear that someone might slip past. One former officer told reporters, "It's not a matter of if they'll try, it's when. Every day, somebody's thinking about it." In 1999, chaos broke out when inmates staged a fight to distract officers. While the brawl raged, one man tried to cut through a fence with smuggled wire cutters. He didn't make it far. Backup swarmed, and the fight was crushed. But the MPT revealed a dangerous truth. When Rikers boils over, escape becomes part of the storm. By the end of the decade, dozens of escape attempts had been foiled. Some lasted hours, others only minutes. But one fact was clear. The East River and Rikers' layers of security made freedom almost impossible. Still, desperation only grew with the new millennium, and the daring plots would reach new extremes. The 2000s would bring high-tech systems, more violent uprisings, and attempts so audacious they stunned the city. And yet, every story ended the same way. Because no matter how clever, how desperate, or how bold, Rikers Island keeps its prisoners locked inside the new millennium. By the early 2000s, Rikers Island was changing. After decades of chaos and corruption scandals, the Department of Correction invested millions into new security. Cameras were installed across the island, motion sensors lined the fences, and the bridge to Queens was reinforced with stricter checkpoints. For inmates dreaming of escape, the odds had never been worse. In 2001, one inmate tried to outsmart the system by hiding inside a dumpster leaving the island. He thought guards wouldn't bother checking trash bins. But by now, every load of garbage was inspected. Officers found him before the truck even reached the bridge. 2 years later, another inmate went further. He managed to smuggle pieces of a correction officer's uniform into his cell. Stitching them together, he dressed the part and tried to walk out with staff during a shift change. But officers noticed something wrong. His badge was fake. His shoes didn't match regulation. The ruse collapsed, and so did his shot at freedom. In 2007, a group of inmates targeted a food delivery truck. They planned to overpower the driver, hide inside, and roll right off the island. But guards intercepted the scheme after a tip-off. When they searched the truck, they found crude knives and restraints hidden under boxes of bread. By this time, officers weren't just stopping escapes. They were expecting them. Many described Rikers as a place where inmates spent every waking hour plotting ways out. One correction captain told a reporter, "If you lock up 10,000 people, at least one is planning to run every single day." Perhaps the boldest attempt of the decade came in 2009. During outdoor recreation, an inmate sprinted toward a fence, slipped through a weak spot, and ran toward the water. For a moment, it looked like he might make it. But before he reached the shoreline, officers tackled him hard. His escape was over in less than 3 minutes. Through the 2000s, every attempt ended the same way. Failure. Rikers was becoming a machine designed to crush escape dreams before they started. Yet desperation never stopped. Each failure only fueled the next plan, the next scheme, the next desperate dive into the impossible. But in the years that followed, the island would face its darkest days. Brutality, corruption, and chaos reached boiling point, and escape attempts became more reckless, more violent, and more tragic. The question was no longer just, how do you get out? But how far are you willing to go? The age of chaos. By the 2010s, Rikers wasn't just a jail, it was a national scandal. Brutality, corruption, and overcrowding had turned the island into a powder keg. Violence skyrocketed. Officers walked off shifts, and politicians debated closing it down. But even in chaos, one rule remained unbroken. No one escaped. In 2011, a desperate inmate broke free from a housing unit, sprinted past security, and dove into the East River. For minutes, guards thought he might vanish into the night. But the current dragged him under. Coast Guard patrols pulled his body out downstream. The river had claimed another. By 2015, technology had changed the game. Inmates hatched a plan to use a smuggled drone for an escape, guiding it with contraband phones. But guards intercepted the scheme before it launched. The drone never took flight, but it revealed how desperate and creative inmates had become. In 2017, as violence worsened, escape rumors spread almost daily. Some inmates tried to saw through bars with smuggled blades. Others staged diversions, hoping to slip through weak points. Each time they failed. The system might have been broken inside, but its outer shell, the fences, the bridge, the river, remained unbreakable. In recent years, Rikers has been called a human rights disaster. Murders, suicides, and chaos dominate headlines. The city has pledged to shut it down by 2027. But through it all, the truth stands. No one has ever escaped Rikers Island and lived free. The island takes them back, one way or another. For nearly a century, Rikers has crushed escape dreams. Men swam through icy waters, built rafts, tunneled, disguised themselves, and fought their way toward freedom. Yet the river, the fences, the guards, and the very design of the island stopped them all. Rikers Island isn't just a jail. It's a trap, a place where freedom is always close, and yet forever out of reach. And that is why no one escapes Rikers Island, not because they don't try, but because the island itself never lets go.